straight from the top.
Yes.
This is the lamest war of words in the history of Origin.
Really?
Don't you reckon?
It hasn't ramped
Is that really
up
what's
yet.
come? Is that really what a war of? It's a long way from the rats and filth dialogue between Mal Meninga and Ricky Stewart about 10 years ago. That was a war of words.
Yeah.
And Ricky's a pretty good combatant when it comes to wars of words. But I find this one very lame, I've got to say.
Yeah.
Like if Michael Maguire was going to use, I'm glad he stirred it up. It's been very boring. No one says anything in Origin anymore. I don't know why. It's not like the rugby league media just latch onto small little comments and blow them up into huge headlines in the name of clickbait to get more and more
that would
subscribers.
Never happen.
I don't think we'd ever do that. But I just find, Glass House is something. Come on, Madge, you've got to expand on that. I'll let you work out who that is. So,
But see, that's the thing. The glass house is it's actually not a bad little, it's not a bad little barb, but it was just subtly put in there. Like it wasn't like.
Not really. He said it in every single interview.
Yeah, but
in repeated interviews. So it's obviously
it didn't fully expand.
No, exactly. But it's obviously a strategy. So is it to get up Queensland's nose? I don't really know. I thought Gordon Tallis nailed it on 360 last night when he said, "You guys are really worried about us, aren't you?" I think it might have a counter effect. The other, he's obviously trying to also show his own team that he's supporting them. That he's made that very clear. I fall in behind my players. Well, does he have to make a cryptic message publicly to send a message to his own players that they can trust him and that he's got their back? I don't know. I find it, having covered a lot of Origin series and a lot of war of words, I find this one to be particularly
There's time.
lame.
There is time. We've got another week. Are you hopeful that something might come out?
What do you mean?
As in something might ramp up from the rhetoric?
I don't know. Probably not.
You don't have faith.
No, I think this war of words has run out of puff already.
Okay,
it worked well. It did 3 days. Good as gold.
Maybe we throw that out there to our listeners today. How do you ramp up the rhetoric? Send in your texts on that one if you want. 0457 736 736. The underlying issue on all of this, and you wrote about it in the Herald, is the grubby tactics.
Well, I just think there's been a bit of amnesia from Queensland. I love it. Queensland, when they're winning, they do like to take the moral high ground. They're very lofty in what they have to say. So, again, I have less concern with anything that Billy Slater may or may not have said or may not have implied. He's too smart, Billy. He did. Excuse me. He didn't criticise Joseph Suwali directly. He talked about the bigger picture and the kids, the children at home. But I do find it hilarious when Nate Miles is giving it to Joseph Suwali'i from the sideline, having covered Nate's career and remembering all that context in terms of exactly why Paul Gallen went bang bang in Origin 1 in 2013.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised. Nate gave him a send off.
No, that's what Nate's all about.
That's right. I don't think there was any great surprise in that one. 1300 01 1170 is the open line number. So we haven't spoken since the team changes were announced, and the focus for the Blues, who comes in, the focus for Queensland, who was left out. We had Billy Slater's press conference running live and then into Madge's press conference on Monday morning. And I was, furiously taking notes about Billy, and I was trying to work out, so let's start there. I was trying to work out if Selwyn Cobbo's injured or Selwyn Cobbo's lost form or Selwyn Cobbo needs a break.
I think it's all three.
A collective, as
it's
Billy
a collective reasoning. Billy can make anything Billy touches at the moment seems to turn to gold, including picking Selwyn Cobbo on the bench with Reece Walsh being knocked out in the first 7 minutes of Origin 1. So who are we to criticise Billy Slater after his 2 series and 1 game up in the next one to question his decisions? So I get it.
I want to go into the New South Wales team changes, but there was something, look, we've discussed this time and time again, and it popped up again on Monday morning from our listeners about the team announcements themselves. So Sunday, the team appears. I mean, it appears well before it officially appears throughout the media leaks. So Sunday, the Blues have their team, sprinkles out and then Monday morning we get the team from Queensland at about 9 o'clock, and then they do a little presser, which was a bit of a shambles, at 9:30. And a lot of people are saying, can't we do something here? I was critical of the press conference setup. I know you would have seen Madge's. I mean, it was like it was a construction site. We can be better than that, right? But hey, there's more important things. Is there any way that we could make the team selections announcements much more streamlined, much better, or is it just what it is?
God, I hear this every year. It's like, but what are we supposed to do? Like, are we supposed to turn it into an event? They're playing all over the weekend. Like you don't know up until the final game usually who's in the side. Like you don't know that they're all going to be fit and ready. So, look, the reason why it gets out is because they have to inform their clubs, and the clubs leak to the media. So, I think the announcements of the teams are the. I've heard this sort of argument that we should try and turn it into an event. Like, Origin's a big enough event, really, isn't it? Unless they just don't say whoever it is. The other thing is they want to try and get blokes into camp as soon as possible because they're coming from far and wide.
Yeah.
So, and then they need to do medicals and all that type of stuff.
Yeah. It's an interesting one, and it'll come up again next year. And it
comes up every year.
My part about it was
that. How are we going to announce the team? Should we suspend the NRL competition during Origin?
Yes.
I've heard those storylines. Probably for the last 25 years.
Do we need to referee it differently? All
Do we
that
need to
kind
referee it differently?
Why
are we taking it to Melbourne?
My thing for the team selections is all sounds very good. Let's get them head to face, and you pick you and all that kind of stuff, and try and make a TV event out of it. You'll only do it once.
Well, how are they going to do that?
Because it won't rate.
Well, how are they going to do that?
That's right.
What are they going to bring everyone, fly everyone from Queensland down here, or everyone from New South Wales out there, and bring them onto the stage at the one time?
You know what?
Honestly, what do people want? It's the naming of a team, for God's sake.
Billy and Madge side by side. You get a whole stack of players in front of them, and like you used to do at school, I'll have Webby.
That'll work.
I'll take Reese.
I'll go with that.
The team changes. Okay, New South Wales, let's focus on there because we've had a couple of days to digest it now. So most of the changes we knew were coming. Latrell comes in. Joseph Suaalii is out. And I reckon the most pertinent question was to Madge. Latrell was available in game one. Why not game one but game two?
Because they need him. I dare say that's the main reason. I think Michael Maguire's been a little bit sneaky with some of his responses around this, saying that was just based on form that he wasn't picked in the first game. I think it was a hell of a lot more than that. I think it was his form, and I think there was questions about. There were questions from that New South Wales camp about his commitment to the jumper. And I can rewrite history and say that it's all different now that he's in the team. I saw Madge's press conference on Monday. I watched it with interest, saying that this is all like a media concoction. Well, the stuff that this is the thing that I think listeners don't really understand. The stuff that gets said privately and when journalists are backgrounded about what's actually going on, and then what's said publicly are two different things. So it's very easy and convenient to background journalists one way and then flip and say something the other. There was certainly concerns about his commitment to that New South Wales jumper. There was a phone call between Michael Maguire and Latrell Mitchell very early on in the piece, but as it was relayed to me in the lead up to the first game, there's no way that they're going to pick him. It was also relayed to me straight after the game, and other journalists, that they weren't that keen to pick him again. And one of those reasons was his relationship with Spencer Leniu. And then that all flipped for whatever reason. There seemed to be a groundswell of support for Latrell to get into the team, and also the way that he was playing made him irresistible to Michael Maguire and whoever else picks the side. So I'm not surprised that he's in there, but don't rewrite history and say that, it was just because he's a change in form. There's a bit more to it than that.
Mitch Moses comes in, which means Nico Hines has been dropped twice after one game in State of Origin now, which is harsh for him. Now, he'll go away and work. He's a professional footballer.
Sure.
What do you make of that? I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, mate? Because any other time you replace your key player, your number 7, and it's huge. But with Latrell coming in, the Mitch Moses thing sort of almost took sort of second level of the discussions.
I'm not. I'm not surprised at all. He would have picked Mitch Moses if Mitch Moses was fit for game one, and so I'm not entirely surprised at all that that Nico's been dropped for that game for this game because Mitchell Moses was going to be there anyway, and he got some games under his belt, and he's probably a better fit at the moment. I'm more interested about how Moses fits with Luai. That's the interesting one for me. I would have been. There's certainly a lot of former players out there who I talked to saying that they would have been surprised if they put Burton at 5/8. They dropped both of them, and I say that as a Jerome Luai fan. Whether Michael Maguire should have gone with a bigger-bodied running 5/8 like Burton, particularly with his kicking game, but now they've got now Moses has come back there, then that's going to alleviate a lot of the kicking, the long kicking that was missing from the first game for New South Wales. So I'm not surprised by Moses coming in whatsoever, and I don't think it's too disrespectful to excuse me to Nico at all. He didn't have a good game, Nico. He didn't have a good game.
Yeah.
That's simple. So I'm not surprised that he was changed.
Dylan Edwards, so gets picked in game number one, and obviously takes James Tedesco's spot, which was a huge story, and then doesn't make it because of injury, and Teddy comes back in. It's interesting to me, Webby, and obviously Dylan's here for game two. Teddy did everything he could, I reckon, in game one. He had his detractors, but he certainly didn't shirk. And didn't go into his shell. It's interesting to me, the spirit and the fight and the passion in the Blues jersey. To drop a captain, then have the captain come back in with that kind of performance, and then he knows that he's going to get replaced again, probably. I mean, and hasn't complained about it, has been very professional, been very James Tedesco about it. That speaks to me to the passion, and it's interesting. He's not playing this time around. But he embodies, I reckon, the passion that they're looking for.
I think it was very strange. I thought it was very strange if you're going to drop not just the captain, the Australian captain, and then ask him to come back in as it says a lot about Tedesco's humility when it comes to his football, and also his humility when it comes to playing for New South Wales. I do think it's a bit unfair that Michael Maguire put him in that position. Again, I'm not surprised, though, that he went with Edwards, because up until 3 days before the game, then it was going to be Edwards was in the team. So and they lost. So it's not like he's... I thought Tedesco was okay in game one. I don't think he shot the lights out, but it's a bit hard to judge him on that match, given his preparation for the game and also the fact that they were down one man for all but 7 minutes of that first match. So I'm comfortable with Edwards coming in there. It's his time.
I heard some, there's been a lot of discussion around Jake Trbojevic and the captaincy. I mean, at the end of the day, the captain played 29 minutes in game number one. Circumstances changed everything, but circumstances need to be prepared for, don't they?
Yeah, well, I find that interesting in itself. So if you're going to go out on a limb and make Jake Trbojevic your captain, it seems to me a flawed logic when you can't have him on the field when you're chasing points. I understand why Jake Trbojevic isn't on there, but if you're going to restrict your captain being on the field because he can't contribute to when you're playing attacking football, that seems like well, should he be there in the first place, or should he at the very least be your captain? I just think that's strange.
And the final one, Cam Murray.
I did have him in there any day of the week.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for Cameron McGuinness, but I understand that one too. The one that I really understand, Connor Watson was in line for that bench position anyway. I actually really like it. It's more like in that Craig Wing utility sort of role. I think he's it's a bold selection. I don't think it's as bold as Freddie picking Tavita Pangai Jr. last year, but I think it's a bold selection, but it's one with which can be completely justified. We'll know on next Wednesday night whether it's the right one or not.
Break. Well, coaches prepare to be one man down, if not a couple of men down, whether it's through sin bin, send-off, injury, HIA. That's where the preparation is. That's what I was saying there about that. Joel, thanks for the text. Morning, lads. Is there any word out of the Bulldogs about future signings? That one from Ryan. Any word out of the Doggies?
Not really.
It's been a bit quiet. Royce Hunt maybe is
Haven't they bought enough?
Question. Haven't you bought enough? Here's one for you, Webby. Do you ever see Kevy Walters coaching out his 3-year contract with the Bronx, doesn't win a competition, Reece Walsh, Billy Slater bromance, and lures Billy to the head coaching role at the Broncos. That one from JJ. Basically saying, do you reckon they move Kevy on once his contract's done and Billy comes in?
I think Billy is very hesitant to become an NRL coach, even though I think he'd smash it out of the park. Secondly, if he did it, I think it'd have to be Melbourne. I know that they'd take him in a heartbeat to replace Craig Bellamy if they could, but I don't know if that's going to happen in the future. But I don't know. Come on, Kevy just made the grand final last year.
Look. There's another.
It's an interesting period for the Broncos, though, isn't it?
Yeah. They're in that interesting snapshot of.
Is the premiership window closing? Can you hear that? It's a creaky window.
Ooh, is that the window in the glass house? No, we don't know.
No,
we don't have to go there. I'm really interested in the Billy Slater. It's a regular discussion, but the interesting part of that for me is that I'm with you. I don't have any doubt that Billy would be a successful NRL coach. Having said that, it's absolutely clear that coaching State of Origin is very different to coaching week in, week out NRL, right? On a number of fronts. And one of those fronts is you don't have the best of the best at your availability at your club. You know, you've got a squad, but it ain't the best squad in Queensland. You know what I mean? So
that's right.
I find that a really interesting chat. He'd be up for it. I don't have any qualm about that. And I'm not saying that just because Billy only coaches State of Origin that he wouldn't be any good in clubland. But it would be a big shift, a huge shift.
Of course. Yeah, it would be. And it's, what's the old Warren Ryan saying? You don't know what the job entails until your name's on the program. So, and that's the truth with NRL head coaching jobs. Like how many great assistant coaches have we seen take it on and not and struggle? Until you're there and you're in the crosshairs, you don't know what it's like, and it takes. And I've talked to many coaches about this. The new coaches that are in there, ones that have been around for a long time. It can take, it can take into your second year or third year into it to realise, what, I'm actually not up for this, or I'm not suited to it. But plenty want to get into it. So I'd love to see Billy in the NRL, but it just, if anything, for those narky press conferences.
Master stroke move. Just a quick one before the 9:30 news. I mean, I posed the question before State of Origin 1 on this show and threw out a whole heap of scenarios, and everyone came back with their scenarios, and you never know. We don't know what's going to happen in the 80 minutes of football, but it turned out, weirdly enough, that the master stroke move came from Billy and Selwyn Cobbo on the bench. You're not going to know that somebody's going to get sent off and the whole world changes after 7 minutes. Is there a master stroke move in the offing for Game 2?
Yes. Cam Murray, the first time New South Wales get down on Queensland's line, Cam Murray, quick play the ball, which he's known for. They'll sweep left, Latrell, first try scorer. You heard it here first.
Hey, 0457 736 736. Why don't you hit us up with your master stroke move for State of Origin number 2, or give us a call this morning on the Alltel open line. You can get 3 months free by switching your 1300 number to Alltel. The coaching world and the coaching roundabout, so all the focus on Parramatta at the moment. Josh Hannay and Jason Riles appear to be the last couple standing. Is that any surprise to you?
Sorry? Jason Riles and Josh Hannay?
Yeah.
I think they're still the front runners, for sure. I noticed a few have dropped out. Again, can we make this very clear to fans and people on social media? Just because Parramatta are interviewing people doesn't mean they're going to appoint them, doesn't mean they're favourites. Like when I saw people blowing up about them interviewing Jason Demetrio, what's wrong with this club? It's called an interview process.
Yeah.
They're interviewing people. And they also want to learn like what the perception is of their club out there. Doesn't mean Jason Demetrio is going to get it. Doesn't mean whoever else is going to get it. But it seems like it's down to those two, Jason Riles and Josh Hannay.
Is there anything that you know of, those two in particular, that would be different?
Why they want it?
Yeah. Not why they want it, but why you'd go Josh instead of Jason or Jason instead of Josh.
Not really. I'm not entirely sure what. They're both very close to the players. They're both modern day coaches, for want of a better term. They understand the modern day player better than anyone. And I think that's what their strength is. If you talk to the clubs that they've been at as assistant coaches, that's where they're very good. Their rapport with the playing group, and that's sort of how the modern day player needs to be coached. They're different. You can't really necessarily take a authoritarian approach to how you coach the modern day player, and I think that's the beauty of what they do. But again, this is the problem though. Like they're both assistant coaches who are going to be taking over if one of them gets it. Who are going to be taking over a club with one of the biggest supporter bases and one that's starved of success since the '86 premiership. So it's
It's a big job.
it's a big job. Go and talk to Cameron Serrato about the big job at Canterbury. You know, the difference is that Parramatta have got a great squad. You know, there isn't much that you'd have to touch to get them going again. That's that's why Trent Barrett's sort of plumping up so much in the last week for the position. Like he can see the potential there better than anyone because he's their interim coach.